Welcome everybody to the architecture meeting. I know the invite is talking about the non-functional requirements, which we did last week, and I still have to take our discussions and move them into the architecture document. So there's a markdown file that I need to take our conversations and add that to the markdown. Once I do that, we'll get a PR out there that will allow us to make additional comments on and clean up from that point of view. Uh, Let me find chat. Where did chat go? There it is. So here's just the link to the documentation. So this is just the meeting minutes I dropped in for the architecture meeting for today. Let me update that real quick. So today, the plan was to go over some personas to make sure that we are covering all of our bases for the new release. So let me. All right. Let me share my screen so you guys can see and we can make sure we have everything going on. Was there anything that anybody had from the non-functional that we needed to wrap up?
Well, we still need to go through each of the various non-functionals. We had talked about, starting 2 weeks from today, having discussions of those one at a time.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going to take the
Mhm.
what we talked about each section and move that to another document that we can start actually writing down the non-functionals and recording it other than in the meeting minutes.
Right. And then Kate, myself, and Jing Chen, who is not, I believe, on today's meeting, had signed up to do a blog post and a lightning talk on non-functionals as well. I sent you and Tracy a note on that last day or so.
Yeah, I saw the note come through, so yes, the the blog post should be no problem. For the blog post, there is um, the main repo that we have, so all the blogs are done in Markdown.
Right. So Tracy sent a link to that.
Yeah,
So we'll be on that, but it'll take a few weeks.
no problem. So it's actually this Ortelius.io.
Yeah. The other thing, by the way, is I'm gonna have to leave at about quarter past the hour.
No problem. So for the blogs in the Ortelius repo, if you go to the content English section, you'll see that there's a blog directory. And I think it would just go into the contributors. So basically, each one of these markdowns is a separate blog post. So if you actually look at it in raw format, it's pretty simple. So there's just the header for the doxy, and this follows all the doxy Hugo markdown styles. Um, if you need to get fancy, let me know. There's ways to do like multi-column and stuff like that. So here's an example of just a regular table that would get rendered on the page. So it's kind of like the Hugo Doxy server is a hybrid between Markdown and regular web page stuff. So uh, you can stick in HTML links and stuff like that if you need to. Let me just catch up here. Um, just some housekeeping from last time. Arvin, you were going to look at the theme designer. Just to update on how that's going.
I share the website in the dev channel. From that we can live test the color and components.
Okay, perfect. And today we're going to talk about the different personas that we want to make sure that the UI UX addresses. So who wants to start? Has anybody ever done personas before? Yeah,
I have.
Kate, I know. I figure, Kate, you have.
Yeah. Yeah, Kate, you have, I have. Why don't you go ahead, Kate?
So let me just kind of the ones that I have worked with on other teams or other working groups. Typical format, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is usually as X, I want to do Y type of thing. So, for example, as a developer, I want to see my scorecard information. And that's kind of like just the basic persona. And then we can build upon each one of those in more details, exactly, the data that you want. But today I was thinking of just getting the high level personas down. We don't want to go crazy and do every single persona that's out there. We'll end up with like 20 or 30 of them. And then it's just overwhelming. I would say we stick to 4 or 5 personas to focus on to get started. Did I phrase that right, Kate?
I totally agree because this can just become crazy.
Yeah.
And I think we should really, focus on who is the dashboard, what is the intent, right? Who do we want to, who are we trying to, have when we look at this dashboard, when people look at this dashboard, um, who are we trying to, what is the persona? Do we want the executive? Do we want to see a C-level person? Um, or do we want, developers? Do we want SOC people? So you're right on because I've done that mistake, Steve. I've done that.
I've been in meetings where it just goes on and on and on, and everybody has these edge cases and stuff. Um,
Yeah,
so
the
it
more simple, the better,
yeah, I totally
So,
agree.
um, the only thing, like I said, so, I've had my failures. Um, I thought like I developed the coolest dashboard around and it failed. And the only thing I'll caution all of us is, what's cool for us may not be cool, for this person who's coming on board saying, okay, what is this? What am I looking at?
Yeah.
So simplicity is the best. Back to simplicity.
Uh,
Yeah.
I
I
would have
would,
to. I would just have to say real quick. More data is not necessarily better.
Yeah.
yeah, I would suggest, I don't know if anybody else has been through design thinking training where a lot of this comes from, but if you do more than about 3 personas, you've probably got too many. You know,
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So let's throw some personas out there, and we'll just start with a list. I'll put the first one out there. We know we have a developer is one of them, and then we can get into what they want to do. If we just get
Yeah. I think we need a SOC person. I don't know how other people feel about that, but
Ah.
the SecOps.
Yep. Hang on. Where's bullet points? There it is. So SecOps.
Yeah.
Okay, when you talk about SecOps, are you talking about a security analyst, Kate, or something else?
Yeah, I'm talking because we talked about the MITRE. The MITRE framework, and that's usually done by SecOps people, a security, I wouldn't call them a security and I don't know, I always call them SecOps.
Yeah.
Well,
So
it's
well, let's just get a couple more down, and then we can come back and because it'll help when we start answering a question. What do they want? We'll kind of frame who they are a little more tightly.
so there'd be somebody from corporate risk.
Yeah.
So it's probably an analyst or something like that.
For SecOps, you think?
No, for the organization,
Yep.
maybe a person who's watching technology risk within the corporate risk organization. That wouldn't be unusual.
Yeah. And do we think that there would be ever a case where like the CTO or CIO would want to log in and see the data um, real time versus having like a corporate risk or a sec ops gather the data and present a report kind of offline to them. Does
I
that make
personally,
sense?
I personally think that you always need to have that executive dashboard, even if, we may want to fight it, like, but I think the executive dashboard's always an important. So yes, to that, Steve, personally. And just because I think so doesn't mean,
Yeah, but
Yep.
is an executive dashboard is a way that these people will interact with the system.
Right.
I don't think that's a role, Kate.
Well, I'm talking like about I've often had to give C-level people reports, and they have asked in return, gosh, I want access to this dashboard. What they can do with it doesn't have to be in-depth because they don't want it in-depth. So they want the donuts, they want the bars, they want to be able to, go to their board and say, this is
Fair enough. So there'd be an executive reviewer of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just put down executive, for example, CIO, CTO, CSO. I mean, we can even go CEO, but I would, depending on the size of the company, obviously.
sure. Yeah.
I think what the trick with a lot of these people is you may let them look, you don't want them let them modify anything.
Yeah, and um, that's a whole separate topic I want to have down the road on who can do what to what, which roles can do what at that level for the data. So we were kind of talking about the SecOps. So as a SecOps person, I want to do what?
So, for me, I want to be able to see, be able to really actually even do some hunting, some cyber hunting, right? Some threat hunting. If I could do some threat hunting within the dashboard, to look at the vulnerabilities, where do they go? How do they connect? That would interest me because, I remember, and I remember, well, Tony, this was with the QRadar IBM Security Watson thing, that when we showed the customer just the vulnerability, they were like, so what? But being able to show the vulnerability within the environment was more interesting to them, and how it jumped from systems to systems to systems. I'm not saying that we can go that in depth, but you know, um, So I call it threat hunting, but it's
I think that's a good one. I've heard that term before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
it's more threat hunting is I would say one of the highest within SecOps right now. Having like a threat analyst, a threat hunter.
And when you're performing this role and you're looking through the relationships as part of your threat hunting, do you ever have the need to go all the way back to the source code or the developer that is working on that?
I've actually had to, yeah. Yeah, and that has become a problem if it's third party, right? And that person's gone. But it's as much of the record that we can have from beginning to end is, I'm not saying I want this out of the box to like tomorrow, but it would be nice to have.
Yeah.
And it's more for audit too. Like, so when you're doing an audit, the question is, when did this vulnerability appear? How far back does it go? But like they want to see the whole record. And I'm not saying that we want the dashboard for an audit reason, but it's helpful. You don't want people to have a bunch of dashboards, right?
Right. That's where once we gather the personas and the data that they are looking for, we can see where the overlaps are
Yeah,
between the roles.
right. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on, would a SecOps person be interested in how to remediate something?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a person that need to prevent things, but there are things that just happen and you need to fix stuff. So there is two parts where he protects and avoid things, another that just happen and need to repair that. So the easiest way to understand that is connect need and goals and behavior. I just put like a little profile on the chat, but I usually you start think like, what is his role? I'm here, I am a SecOps guy and I'm here to protect the company. Protect against what? Trading, malicious activities. So the first thing is what I'm here. Well, I'm here to protect stuff. What are that stuff? And then in order to do that, I have a behavior. I usually have like a board meetings, I do architecture review, I do, we manage a scanning platform. So in order to offer, understand what he how to help it, we are like now talking about the behavior. So the behavior is like what in every day he usually do, and usually is like the agenda that he has like weekly. And I think, yeah, there's usually on that as SecOps people are like hearing about what are the threats like in the market, and he is trying to establish first of all like a knowledge base and then procedures to prevent that. That will be like normal, like in the scope of being up to date. And then he need to go to the tactical and think how I put this in place to proactively avoid that. So I don't know much guy of SecOps, sadly, but I know at least people that on the behavior will ask for analyze the process and put like validation or control points for saying some way. That's usually I hear people try to do.
Yeah, and that that is kind of alludes into the either, like you said, Sergio, detection or monitoring type of role thing. So would a SecOps person actually be doing adding monitoring for a particular?
So we can take log4j as an example.
Yeah, I always work better by examples.
Yeah, sure. And when that came out, I mean, the SecOps, we're all over that, meaning, how do we find, sorry about that, guys. How do we find the log4j? Where is this vulnerability? And it was all hands on deck for the SecOps people. So if you think about it, a SecOps center, and with all the TV screens and everything else, they're running these scripts trying to find log4j because it was a script with that they were looking for. Like they did wrote a script within the tools that they had, and then they could bring back what did where was it and how could we mitigate it. And it was also because it was everywhere, unfortunately. They also then started to apply risk, like internet facing servers, or what is direct. It's like, man, we gotta get this right away, and then they started to work in that fashion. So
Right.
log4j, then the critical assets, and then down.
Yeah, I usually hear like we do scans, we check stuff, we alert things.
What do you mean?
Oh, sorry. I on my side usually is the way for security people to demonstrate what they do to the company is they have validation, scanning and validation embedded in the delivery process or the workload delivery or all the change.
So
By
did that answer your question, Kate?
Yeah, I was gonna ask some more, but it's okay. Like, how big is the organization? Blah blah blah.
So on just to jump back onto the monitor and detect part of SecOps, we just need to fill that in a little more on what that SecOps person would be actually wanting to do on that front. So Sergio, you said scanners.
They usually like application code and dependencies, and then operating system, and then infrastructure. Probably are going to be the three layer most common layers.
I think the overall health, any new information about the diseases
Yeah.
and audit reports.
Yeah, I already had the audit piece in here. Do we need to beef up the audit piece? And
And
this is just
comply.
all first pass, so it's nothing written in stone here.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Anything else that a SecOps person would do? They're awfully busy here. All right.
Usually they have goals that are pretty much easy to understand how to help it. I don't know what are like the normal goals for a DevSecOps, but I know something like no incident and no data filtering. I don't know, because there is always like a company goal that is imposed to this person.
Would that
Well,
be? would that fall under audit the goals?
Audit is like the way to do it, but it's for avoid something or get something, no?
Another goal you probably have is, do I have the ability to notice a developer just grabbed a library and started using it without anybody blessing that? And that happens all the time.
Yeah.
So it's essentially, if this is in my DevSecOps pipeline, I want to be able to say, have I ever seen this before?
Right. I'm trying to, I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm trying to think how we can phrase it.
I want to be alerted when, or it's either be alerted, which is the system being proactive, or maybe reactively be able to go scan for new component usage, something we haven't seen before.
And Steve, I put in, what I put in, hold on, let me just skip the chat.
Where did you throw it in the chat?
I didn't. I'm going to. But I have a whole SecOps, where it's going, where it's been, that I would talk to. Copy. Why did you go? There we go. Okay. And then, so, and we're talking like, talking to, you know, the Fortune 1000.
Yeah.
with SecOps. So, let me see if I can copy this as well. It's just so that I'm really like not into recreating the wheel at all. I don't know if you can see that too.
I'm just trying to get your stuff in here so I don't forget about it.
And I know that, like, right now we're only talking about one. Or one person. One persona, excuse me. I have a pretty good architecture here. Let's see if I can throw it in there.
I think, can we create a survey for that? Like for a microservice catalog, what is the stuff that you want to see?
We've done surveys in the past, and they're really hard to manage and get out and follow up on. People get burnt out with surveys. The CDF has done them, the OpenSF has done them. We may be able to find an existing survey that we can pull from, Arvin. But doing one ourselves is, you just don't get the results that you expect.
Yeah, that's true.
Steve, it says unrestricted to put like a JPEG in it. I don't know if you can.
You can drop it in Discord, and I can grab it that
Okay.
way.
Great.
The chat is limited to the files.
Okay.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Usually in personas, you make an exercise based on some, like try to put it a face on this. Usually has a name and usually has like characteristics of a real person. In the way that you can understand that the behaviors change based on the condition of the people. So usually you have in the profile demographic, like DevSecOps usually is a man, woman of years old and have that kind of, I don't know, profession. So sometimes demographic help you to understand this person will like to use something more new or more traditional, something more, so I just kind of think if we are going to add this on the personas or we are going to attach to behaviors and goals strictly.
I think I know what you're talking about. I've seen that before. I think we should be a little more general, or try to be more general. Because like we said,
more
we could,
simple.
yeah, keep it simple. Because I know if we get into that, like we said, you could end up with 20 or 30 personas. That I think right now, just keeping it simple, just to make sure we have a good high level, is where we should be. That's my opinion.
That's okay. Behavior and goals are the main thing, so
Yeah.
it's okay.
Okay. Any other thing on a SecOps person?
No, we need to iterate on this, so don't try
Yeah.
to be so good at the beginning.
And I'm going to throw in here DevSecOps as that persona.
And platform engineer also.
What was that, Arvin?
Platform engineer. SRE.
Oh, SRE. Yeah, we don't really have an SRE.
Yeah, I mean, it's related in the way that availability has one connect is can be happen or can be affected by security vulnerabilities.
Yeah, I just kind of threw those out there.
I did put in that SecOps reference architecture
Where did you drop it?
in, under,
In Discord?
Yeah.
Okay.
Share content.
Yeah, thanks.
This one?
No, Cat has shared in the share content channel at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, share content.
Got it.
Okay. It's pretty, maybe too extensive, but just to give it, we can pick and choose. Yeah. But you see there Sec DevOps,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going to throw that in here real quick. Come on. I know you're here somewhere. There it is. Cool. One way to get it to me. And I'll move it around and stuff. So from an SRE, production control release management persona, I've done this role before, and we really don't worry about security, believe it or not. We just take things from the developer and get them out the door. That's
I believe it.
It really is. I mean,
Trust me, I believe that.
it just so.
And there is some sort of quality gate, but I mean, never.
They're more worried about the thing
Yeah.
functioning than security.
Yeah. And also, you know, they wanted like yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I want to be sure that works. That's like the main
Yeah.
thing. Works and
Nobody
goes to
worries
the hands
about
of the customer.
security until they have a problem. And then everybody decides they should have worried about it.
Yeah.
It's
So,
very reactive on that
Yeah.
perspective.
yeah, I was always fairly hard-nosed about that as, sorry, you know, here are my criteria before this goes in production. Sometimes I got away with it.
That's basically my my pessimistic view of SREs and those folks. Do we want to go to develop? Are we kind of good with the SecOps and DevSecOps? Like I said, we could come back and add things onto it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is probably a good point for me to bail out. I've got to be at an in-person meeting, so.
All right.
talk to you
Thanks,
guys
Tony, for
next
popping
time.
in.
Okay, take care.
Yep.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, bye.
All right. So we'll do this. We'll give it another 10 minutes. So corporate risk.
Correct. I want to avoid a lawsuit. I don't know how to spell it. Sorry, I think it's
Yeah.
French. I'm trying to say it in English.
Avoid to loss
Yes.
of money and customers.
Is this where we spoke last time on, where I brought up those Alinea tools, the whole ROI or is that
Yeah.
something? It's the same thing?
Yep.
Yeah, repudiation today, like for globalization, repudiation is kind of more affected things when something fails, especially in security.
Would a corporate risk person want to know, and we kind of alluded to this last time, the cost to fix something?
Uh,
I don't think. I think
A CEO would want to know. Corporate risk, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I also added some point in the chat.
Are you talking, Steve, when you say that? Are you, because something that was popular is, with application security is to show the cost of bolt-on security as opposed to starting the security at the beginning? Secure coding in the beginning?
No, I was thinking more of along the lines of let's take the Log4j for example. Log4j, our corporation is a Microsoft.NET shop. And then we have this one project team that wrote an employee management module to keep track of your hours that was written in Java. It's only an internal, the employee management, the time tracking tool is only internal to the organization, but all of our customer facing stuff is written in .NET. So the Log4j scenario in that case would be, even though it's a really bad thing, the chance of it being exploited internally for a time tracking system is very low. So the cost to the company as a whole, if we don't fix that, is very low. We don't have any exposure, so our losses are going to be very low. Does that make sense?
It does. I do feel like that's taken into account, but I guess it depends on how big the organization is.
Yeah, so kind of like let me rephrase it this way. And then also on the flip side, and then finally, I just had it. That's kind of what I was getting at. I don't know if that helps. And if it even belongs in that section.
Yeah, I think it does.
And I don't know if that's a corporate. I always associate corporate risk with a dollar amount.
Oh.
That that's the way they think on that front.
It
Is my thought of a corporate risk person. I don't know if that's true or not.
Uh, I have worked with a few finance risk guys. They are usually they are usually guys who are slightly annoying and say, "I told you so."
Yeah, they are the I told you so folks.
Yeah. So I don't know if they are even aware of their dollar in terms of dollar terms. What would it take to mitigate their own risk recommendations? They just give recommendations and are like, okay, get it done if you care about risk.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I find very annoying with security in general is um, people go out there and say that you have this vulnerability and this, like for the log4j, for example. Okay, we found that log4j has this vulnerability. Now you guys are responsible for fixing it, but they never say how to fix it and where it should be fixed and how to mitigate it. They just say it's bad. And that just annoys me because there's no guidance that comes down.
Yeah, nothing actionable ever comes out of there.
Hmm. Yeah, one of the reasons security fails is because it's disconnected with everything. The only security I believe is the one that is embedded and is implicitly implemented in what you do. I'm expecting from my team have some people that are expert on security, and they know what to add in the pipeline, what are add in the build, what are in the deployment, what are everything. So they say, hey, we need to put this in place, and at the end is another technical implementation about this logical security need. But if it's disconnected with the implementation team, if it's not part of SRE, if it's not part of release, if it's not part of development, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm just putting.
It reminds me of the Phoenix project. If like anyone of you read that book.
So that's the good thing is that that is a problem that is pretty much everywhere and it's a huge opportunity. So if we make that possible, what we see like the opposite thing that be part of and people that is disconnected with the implementation but can use the platform to put it in place to say like, hey, I'm not going to give you a recommendation. I'm going to say that here there is here is and you can use it. You just need to connect it, like that can make a huge change.
I'm just and I kind of just putting this down at the bottom because I don't know where it fits yet, but.
I added a couple of points on what we were discussing uh, in the chat.
Okay,
If you want, you can just copy paste it.
yeah. Let me just finish this thought and I'll grab them. Uh, right, let me grab the chat. Come on, chat. Where did you go? All right. And which section, Raj, were you thinking these going into?
Corporate risk.
Okay.
By the way, has anyone seen the movie Margin Call?
No.
Oh, it's it's yeah, it's basically the story of one of the risk guys who calls out the 2008 crisis, and it's really entertaining. Nobody listens to him until they have to.
Do you have a link to that?
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorite movies. It's Jeremy Irons and all really good actors.
That sounds a good option to put it in context.
Yeah.
A good
So,
movie too.
yeah. So we'll have to. Everybody has their Netflix homework.
Steve, later on the Zoom call, we will watch it together.
Yeah, we can do a group watch in Discord.
Yeah.
Yeah, I dropped the link in the chat.
Yeah, I got it. Cool. All right. So we did pretty good, I would say. So the two that we have left are going to be the executive level and then the developer. So if anybody wants to take a stab at those, let me drop this link in Discord. Whoops, Discord. I'll put in general.
Um, how do you prioritize which person to target from all of these?
Like I said, more than likely, what ends up happening is we'll look at each one of these and, for example, um, monitors compliance is going to overlap with maybe monitor and detect. So what ends up happening is you're going to have between all these different personas, we're going to see where the overlaps are and make sure that when we build out the dashboard and the UI UX that is one of the main priorities that we address first because it spans multiple personas. You get a lot of bang for your buck for designing around that. Does that make sense?
I see. Yeah, so like the more times a similar things gets repeated, the higher priority you'll put it as.
Yeah, yeah. And the reason why we do that because, like I said, we can do a lot of we can focus on that, and then we address a lot of different personas.
Yeah, and we
Um,
can complement with an impact quadrant. So there is a lot of these people that we can evaluate if these are nice to have or are important, and then if, the level of effort. So with that quadrant at the end, we have like a kind of backlog that is commonly, and with that quadrant we say, okay, this is like big impact is important, and is hopefully less effort, but at some time you're still picking like high effort with high impact too. But that's kind of thing that can make the short list of what we want to do.
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, like for how much does it cost to mitigate a vulnerability, or um, like on this one, in order to achieve this, you have to collect the vulnerabilities, and you can kind of match it up with this one. Figure out the exposure of that vulnerability within your organization. So the two go hand in hand, and one will feed into the next one, usually.
We have to make like separate APIs for each one of them, or we will create APIs for the components.
Uh, it will depend on what we are trying to achieve. So, like this one here, your health check and the monitoring and piece, the monitor detect. This may be the section that you're currently looking at with open telemetry, Arvin. So when we get to our UI UX level for an application, we may have a box that says, here's the health of this application running in the different environments based on what we're gathering from open telemetry, for example.
Got it. Then we have like different sections for each one of them.
Yeah, and some of this will be based on a viewpoint. So, and when we get into the developer, it'll kind of pop up as well. So, like on the threat hunting part, you're looking at what are my threats in production versus what are the threats in development. So that's an environment point of view. And now when you look at an environment point of view, corporate risk person is always going to be looking at production. They're not going to be worried about what's happening in development, so they're going to be a production environment point of view. And same thing like with the developers, the vulnerabilities in developers. The SecOp, this is where this point of view is going to overlap between the SecOps and the developer viewpoint. So we're going to end up with a certain number of viewpoints of how we're going to look at the data and the relationships. And then there'll be things that we'll need to associate together with it, like cost. I don't know if we can derive cost, or if it's something that somebody has to assign a dollar amount. So let's say,
We can assign the deployment cost, but that would be too tricky.
yeah,
Like
and this
we
is
have
where,
to be.
so let's say we know that you have to bump to the latest version of a package dependency. So that could be something that's done by like Renovate or Mend. So implementing that would be like a low cost. Maybe it's $1,000 would be what's needed to put amend, renovate, or Dependabot in place to automatically bump that. So that'd be like a low cost that we can associate with that type of thing. Even like the log4j example, where is it being used? Because we have the data, that's going to be another low cost. Like Kate was saying before, without using Ortelius, people would have to write all these scripts to go find log4j, which was a high cost. But if you're using Ortelius and we have the data, we can show where that's being used very cost effectively.
And I think with those Alinea tools that I sent over to Tracy, I don't know if you've seen them yet, Steve, but I do think that we can calculate the cost. It would be really nice to maybe on the like the right-hand side of the dashboard, especially as we talk about, I hate to use the word AI. I don't know, let's maybe more like we have these models that we could use on the right-hand side of the dashboard to show that if you use this tool, it will save you X amount of money.
Yep. Yep, exactly.
Like I can sort of see that in my head.
Yeah, I can too. It's like I've always said, we need to get the data, and once we have the data, then we can you know, kind of navigate the data, and then we can act upon it.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? I think we hammered out a good number here. And I put into Discord the link to this document. So if anybody wants to come in and do a developer or an executive, please go ahead and add in your bullet points. That would be great. And I say we meet next week again. Same time, same place.
Okay, thank you. Have
All
a
right,
good day.
I'll make sure the invites are up to date for next week.
Cool.
All right, thanks everybody. Excellent session.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Bye bye, everyone. Have
Bye.
a great day.